greeted when I get introduced, and the fact that I'm going to come to you mostly through this medium here for the rest of the show. And I should tell you that I'm backed up by quite a staff of people between here and Menlo Park, where Stanford Research is located, some 30 miles south of here. And if every one of us does our job well, it'll all go very interesting, I think. The research program that I'm going to describe to you is quickly characterizable by saying, if in your office you as an intellectual worker were supplied with a computer display backed up by a computer that was alive for you all day and was instantly responsive. Okay, there's Don Andrews' hand in Menlo Park. And in a second we'll see the screen that he's working and the way the tracking spot moves in conjunction with movements of that mouse. I don't know why we call it a mouse. Sometimes I apologize. It started that way and we never did change it. All right, as it moves up or down or sideways, so does the tracking spot. And the principles for its operation are quite easy to see. If you'll turn it over, Don. Can you hear me, Don? Would you turn it over and we'll see, right. Its principle is that there are two wheels that roll on the surface, but since they're at right angles and kind of sharp edges, one will roll and the other slide in one direction. Each of these wheels controls through a potentiometer with a voltage output sampled by an 880V converter the numbers taken in by the computer at sample times as to what the horizontal vertical components are to be of where it should put the tracking spot. And as the mouse moves over a surface, then each of those wheels either slides sideways without rolling or rolls an amount that very closely duplicates the particular component of horizontal or vertical in the net motion it makes. All right, if you take a mouse and move it through some closed trajectory back to exactly the same point, usually the tracking spot won't come back to exactly the same place it was on the screen. And for that sense, it wouldn't work well if you're trying to trace maps or other figures and diagrams. But the way we use it continuously and exclusively is to watch the screen and to follow it around. And we use this merely as a device to move that tracking spot. And your eye on the tracking spot, you really don't care whether it follows exactly this or not. In fact, we've had it at times where our tracking device, you had to move in an arc like that to make the tracking spot go on a horizontal line. And people adjusted to it and would go like that to go in a straight line and wouldn't even know that they were doing it. Other features of the mouse are that it stays put. I can lift it and replace it without having the spot change, so I can adjust where I want it for my comfort. And these control buttons on the top are used quite a bit, and I'll show you a little bit later how some of those are used. Now the keyboard in the middle is essentially a standard typewriter keyboard except for a few special keys out on the side. The computer knows it instantly when you hit one and makes an appropriate response. This device over here is unique to us, and we always have to justify and explain it. We'll do it in reverse order. We'll explain it first. It provides for you the one-hand equivalent of what you can do with a keyboard. There are 5 keys, and normally each finger sits on a key, and depressing any one key at a time produces a character. And any 2 keys at a time also. And in fact, any combination of depressing, of which there are 31 combinations. So Don soon learns and can type the message. I'd rather insert it. I, C, select, S, X. It'll offer you a character. If I hit W, it'll say delete word. The arrow moves back and forth to give me feedback. My tracking spot changes. That gives me feedback. Now it tells me, since it's an arrow that it's armed, I can do something. We get a lot of feedback. Let me restore a view like this to show you This is more normally the way we work with feedback up here, where here I'm shown, not working. That's an echo register that normally gives you the last 6 characters that you use. Oops, not working, all right. The last 6 characters and left shifts continuously, so you can look up at any time and see what have I just struck. And that's very good feedback. Here are characters that show me the different viewing parameters, view specs. They get large at times at which I can hit single strokes that change those view parameters. And each of those means something to me, and their being large at particular times tells me I can hit very quick abbreviation for changing the view. So I can say, all right, I'd like to go to produce, but I'd like to go to produce, they get big, I'd like to say one branch only, and let me look just that low, and I see it. Oh, I can say, I'd like to see one line only. I can see it. So these ways I move around, the way I get feedback up here, the way I use both hands to coordinate to tell the computer what command and what short literals I want, are all carefully designed to go together to make the repertoire system. And so we are beginning to develop some of those, and we'd be happy to talk to you about those during open house. And a forthcoming involvement is this ARPA computer network, the experimental network that's going to come into being in its first form in about a year and end up sometime later with some 20 experimental computers in a network. And they hope to be able to transmit across the country with bandwidths of something like 20 kilobits per second, delay times of less than a tenth of a second, which would be enough so that I could be running a system in Cambridge over the network and getting the same kind of response on a CRT. And it may be that people there, the next time we have a conference in Boston, I'll try this from there. And in that network, we're going to try to develop a special service to provide network information, relevant network information for people, for the kind of information that it takes to operate such a network. Who's got what services, what protocol do I use to get there, who's up to date, how much, where's the user's guide, where can I find the paper that describes this system that so-and-so offers. That's going to be a very interesting challenge for us to utilize our tools for organizing and retrieving information. And the last thing here is just a little comment about, after all of this, what's the product that we're providing in this research? Well, we're providing a sample augmentation system, the one we use. And not only that, it's an augmentation system that's provided to augment computer system development. And beyond that, we also are hoping that we're developing quite a few design principles for developing augmentation systems. And these, I hope, are